Yeah. It turns out I'm doing sort of a retrospective. I'm showing quite a few short films, and yeah, the films. I guess I think of all these short films that I have been working on over the years. They're all sort of small pieces of one larger project. So I think that's part of the idea behind them, and they're all in some ways examinations of, explorations of kinds of geography. They started out as sort of a way for me to try to make sense of the United States, the country I came from, and they've sort of worked their way out from both the kind of specific region where I grew up, which is western Texas, kind of panhandle of Texas, and part of New Mexico, and gradually I've sort of worked my way, maybe like a series of circles. Maybe each one's sort of a mapping exercise, and the map just keeps expanding and expanding. So I sort of have been kind of increasing the range of these examinations. But yeah, the idea is to sort of use the camera and an audio recording device as an excuse to do a sort of exploration of both the sort of regions of the United States in terms of the landscapes that I'm familiar with and those that I'm not familiar with, but also to try to get a sense of the histories that kind of underlie or behind these landscapes. So in some ways that the films are, they're touristic on the one hand, they're sort of a kind of tourism, they're diaristic, they're kind of ways for me to, they're places where I try to make sense out of certain landscapes, certain places. And then maybe they're even sort of exercises in historiography and trying to understand what history is and how it's expressed in the built environment and in landscapes as well. So all of them in one way or another, I think, sort of weave their way through all these ideas as kind of tourism, as kind of contemplations on space and place and my own place, my own position in these locations. But they've all, I guess the filmmaking's all been an effort to try to make sense out of places and out of spaces, and to perhaps find the sort of find some sort of human access to the landscape and to place, to try to find a way in which to try to find the human scale and the human being in these places that are, I think coming from West Texas in particular, these are huge, probably landscapes people in Spain are familiar with. Vast landscapes, huge skies, long horizons. And that kind of scale is overwhelming, in some ways maybe not even a particularly human scale. So I think maybe growing up in a landscape like that, I always struggled with both being in awe of those kind of spaces, but feeling sort of swallowed up by them too, and trying to figure out a way to kind of make a sort of human scale or find a sort of human scale in places like that. So those are some of the ideas that have kind of guided the filmmaking, I think. I was making photographs at a really young age, so I think just at some very early age, I think I found out early on I didn't know how to draw. I didn't have any particular musical talents. I didn't think, somehow I found my way to still making still photographs, and I still remember as a 7-year-old taking lessons. A very old this kind of cowboy in West Texas, he was a photographer, and I had tutoring lessons with this guy. So I still remember as a 7-year-old being in a dark room, old-fashioned dark room before these digital cameras with this kind of old cowboy. And he was showing me how to develop things. And I breathed in a lot of darkroom chemistry, and probably it altered my brain at that early age. And after that, I was poisoned by photography, I think. For better or for worse, it poisoned me. And so I think from those early experiences with still photography, it wasn't such a leap to start making, to become more interested in moving images as well. But I always sort of think too, I feel like it is partly an accident of where I was from. I mean, my very earliest films, I was sort of interested in the first thing I thought to do was point my film camera at, like I say, at these landscapes, at these places. And I still feel like West Texas is just a particularly cinematic space or landscape, and it somehow just it felt like a natural gesture as someone who was interested in images and image making to sort of pick up a camera and start pointing it at this world that I lived in. So that's kind of how I began. But then in college, I mean, the sort of nitty-gritty details in college, I then began to take filmmaking classes, and one thing led to another. I found myself in a non-fiction sort of documentary film program in college, which was sort of a lucky accident. Around people who were doing this kind of first-person cinema. One of my teachers was Ross McElwee, who is in the United States known for a particular kind of first-person filmmaking. And from there, I sort of was hooked on motion picture making and nonfiction first-person motion picture making. So that's